Hey guys, welcome to Michelle's Opinions. Today I have the honor of interviewing Shane from Unbiased and On the Fence. Wow, we're in for a good treat today, guys. I'm going to allow him to tell you a little bit about where you can reach him, his channel, what his goal is with his channel, and then we'll get right into the interview part. Shane?
Thank you, Michelle, and thanks for having me on. Well, I've got Unbiased and On the Fence YouTube channel. You can find me at Unbiased and On the Fence if you search it. And basically, it was before my wake up. I considered, realizing that reality wasn't quite what I thought it was. But that happened about a month after I started the channel. So I really started it as a way to view different people and different cultures and different beliefs in a way that we sort of set our own aside and see if we can put ourselves in other people's shoes, like considering being born in a certain culture, in a certain religion, with certain parents. Can we see ourselves being like other people? And that was sort of how it all started for me. I had, out of both of my parents, one was a Democrat, one was a Republican, and they had opposite views on, say, abortion, for instance. And so I really strived to understand both points of view. Maybe not from my own. I never really gave up my belief on the topic, but I was able to get to a point where I was able to see why both parents chose the political party they chose and the beliefs they chose and the religion. And so I've been on this lifelong journey really of sort of seeing if I could see myself being like other people with the worldviews that they have. So that's why I really started the channel, is I thought it was a great way of objectively looking at other worldviews, and it helped us to really connect with other people when you can see yourself being that person. If you were presented with the same, circumstances, if you will, that got that person to believe what they believe. So that's how I started it. And that was really the whole purpose, is sort of tear down the walls that divide us as people, to just sort of see people as other people with families that they love and, not really much different than you or I.
How long ago did you start your channel?
I started in February of 2017.
Wow. Okay, let's get into some good stuff now. When did you awaken or become aware? Was it like the Mandela effect? Do you remember what year it was? Spiritual cleansing happened to you? What was that aha moment for you?
I would say the Mandela effect was really my quantum leap, where I really had to go back to the drawing board and clear it off. I was raised in a Christian family, so I was raised Christian. I read through the Bible dozens of times, and I sort of unindoctrinated myself from reading the Bible and realizing that if you sort of ignore what you're told in church and what preachers tell you and what's taught, with doctrine and dogma, and you just read the Bible for yourself, you begin to come to very different conclusions about the true message of Jesus and our true purpose here on earth and things like that. But and that had all happened over a series, just like my whole lifetime through my 20s, and reading the Bible over and over again. And then so I sort of, after digging into the Sumerian tablets, and I'd come to a dead end, I would say probably around winter of 2016, right before I started the channel. And I reached this low in my life that I'd never been. I'd tracked everything back to like Enki and Enlil and the Sumerian tablets, and I felt like all of my answers went off-world, and I would never come to any satisfactory conclusion about where all of the writings originally came from and things like that. And it really got me to the point where like I said, I reached the low of my whole life, and I felt like everything was just meaningless, and I didn't have any purpose for being here. It's like we all just live and die, and happy times are happy, but it was like what are we doing it for? It's like you just live and you die.
And there was more. You knew there was more to it.
Well, at that time, I felt like,
or I mean, was it like an introspection, a reevaluation when you hit that low that made you pop out in 2017 with the revelation of, wait a minute, something else is going on here?
Well, in February, I guess I had right when I started the channel, I felt like there's got to be a way to help people sort of get out of these man-made prisons, like religion and just different beliefs that seem to separate everybody. And I just felt like I had to find purpose in life. Even though I reached that low, I had to figure out a way to sort of begin to unite people. And that's, what I guess I intuited it, looking back on it now, it was like intuition that I wanted to, come up with some purpose for life. If there wasn't anything more than this life, at least I could sort of help break people free of their prisons. And then when the Mandela effect happened, after looking into it for a while and seeing that it sort of pushed me back to the right side of my brain, I was very analytical at that point. I only believed what could be proven or what could be tested. And when I kind of went away from CERN or the D-Wave computer as being the cause for it, it forced me back to my right brain to think of it as more of a supernatural thing. What could be happening here supernaturally? Because things changing in an impossible way really forced me to, take a second look at everything. So I cleared the chalkboard, cleared the table, if you will, just to see what could really be happening right here,
And brought up a whole new foundation and a new and better you with the truth residing.
Yeah, it sure did.
You had shared with me that you had got a little collage or screen show of your life. If you wouldn't mind showing those and telling a little bit about what was going on in each one of those photos. And I have to say, guys, when you are indoctrinated in any religion, it is a very hard thing to overcome. I've heard from many people how difficult it is, to get out of those boxes. I now can read the Bible with new eyes and see that it is all, the information is in there for this process. But you've got to be able to read it and understand it, that it is actually, I read it now as it is the transformation that we're going through. That old paradigm left mind, which they call the male side of the brain left and the female side of the brain right, but that they're coming into balance with each other. And then you create, and then you go through it and you experience it in the physical. And so, it's just a very, very interesting time. It looks like he's prepared to go. So, Shane, take it away.
All right. Well, this is me with my brother and sister. I was the youngest of three, actually five, but the other two sisters didn't live with us. So basically, I grew up with an older brother and an older sister. I was the youngest, and you can see here we were getting ready for church, and I wasn't really happy about it. I didn't really dig church too much when I was really young, but that's us heading out. And so I was born. My mom's not featured in this picture, but I was born into a biracial family. My dad was black and Indian, and my mom was white and Welsh, and she had some Indian in her. My brother was actually my half brother, but he was raised just like, he was just a full-blooded brother, biological brother to me. And my dad treated him just like his own son. And I was actually born on his 9th birthday. So we were both born on March 30th. He was born in 65 and I was born in 74. So I was like his birthday gift. And then here we are here. This is my sister and I, and my big brother. This is one that I used to be embarrassed about because I'm picking my nose, but it's such a funny picture now that you can sort of get beyond the embarrassment of it. It's just, we were on vacation there, I think. This is when my brother had moved out. I got a little older. This is my mom and dad and my sister and I. And Jose would be happy about this one. This is like when I had the gap between my teeth. We both have gaps now. So this is me and my sister taking karate. I just put together a few images I could collect. This is me when I got into my teenage years. And when I started to get facial hair, I was a little bit older. This was actually probably a year or two before I got married. I got married at 19 to my wife. We've been married all this time, long time. And this was my wife and I with our first kid. She is now 24. Yeah, she'll be 24 in September.
Wow.
Yeah. And then that's me during my church years. And that's probably about 10 or 15 years ago. So that's pretty much what I could dig up in such a short amount of time.
So
But
that's where you started from, where you were under the assumption of, that you had one identity, which was like your false identity. And then you had this
exactly.
aha moment and you realize, okay, you're from a biracial family. You probably have, trouble with that. Um, you know, People can be cruel. They just can. And what we're finding out is if we put on somebody else's shoes and walk a mile in their shoes, we have more compassion for them, more understanding, and also see the equality and these gifts being stirred back up into us and learning how to apply them into our lives. Have you had anything like that, happen? You see in I call it numbers, when it's like synchronicities, or are you having dreams and visions, or did you have that, which some people would call the Kundalini awakening, or we would call it Holy Spirit baptism? Did anything, supernatural like that happen to you, or what was your supernatural moment?
My
Besides Mandela, of course.
Well, yeah, all growing up through church, I went to a Holy Roller church where we spoke in tongues and we felt the Holy Spirit all the time. That's why I'll often refer back to it. I'm like, man, it was like back when I was in church and I felt the Holy Spirit. And I think that's why a lot of people have difficulty leaving the church, is because they feel something very real there and they experience something very real, some even supernatural healings and stuff. And I think they falsely associate it with the church and not with God or the Holy Spirit doing the supernatural thing. So it makes it very difficult for them to leave the church because they know miracles have happened there for them. But once I got out of the church and I realized these miracles literally happen anywhere. I mean, it's the humans that sort of put God in a box and say, well, he can only work from the church, or he can only work from this place or that place. God can work from anywhere. And, a loving creator will meet us wherever we are, just like we would meet any of our own children wherever we are. And we would even go into like the gangs and try to get our kids retrieved from, somewhere horrible at the own risk of our own life, if that's what it took, because we love our children. And that's what I view the creator like, that, there's no place he won't go to find us, and I say he, but really it. And I found out it's more personal than it. So I tend to not, but I don't believe that. I believe we're talking about an androgynous being or an energy or something. I really feel like we're all made up of source, and we're all just little pieces of this all encompassing source that everything is made up of. Even the worst person you can think of wouldn't be living and breathing and their heart beating without God in them. I feel like we're all pieces
Divine
of
breath
God.
of life. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. A lot of people say, well, that's sacrilegious, or that's, an abomination to say you're God. And it's like, I think just the opposite. To say you live and breathe and exist without God, to me, is more sacrilegious. It's like saying you can exist without God. So, it's weird, because I used to think that way, and my perspective has shifted so much. And I respect people who believe that. And, I don't want to force my beliefs on them, but, I'm just showing how you can believe both ways, the same from both directions. And it's actually true for those people as it is for me. So, it's just.
So how do you feel like with what you know now? I mean, I know that I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known this much earlier. How do you feel now versus where you were to where you are now? I mean, do you feel like everything was upside down and inverted in the old way that you were thinking to the where you're at now in your life?
Like where I'm at right now, if you would have asked me, 2 decades ago or even a decade ago, if I would be where I'm at right now, I would swear there's no possible way I would believe the things I believe right now. But, you know, it was really important. It was like these were all stepping stones that, you know, brought me to where I am right now. And I really have no regrets whatsoever. Even my time of, you know, being in the world, if you will, my prodigal Sundays were all important experiences to bring me and mold me into who I am right now. And I think, you know, there's been a divine hand on my life this whole time, and I'm just now seeing it, but it was always there. It was guiding me. It was tearing down doctrines and stuff like that. One example is, you know, we were raised in Christianity that homosexuality is a really bad thing, and that you know, those people are demon possessed or whatever, you know. And it's like, I went through this time where I was throwing these underground rave parties, and I met so many wonderful people that ended up being gay, and I didn't know it. You know what I mean? And it was like they were my friends before I knew, and it was like, oh, these are just regular people like anybody else. So I think of that as a wonderful time for me to get to know people, and then find out about their, you know, their life.
Unbiased and on the fence.
Exactly, and just to take people for who they are, and to, you know, don't just give everybody a shot, basically. And when you do that, you find that you come across loving, wonderful people in every religion and every, you know, lifestyle, if you will, that you come across. And if you just treat them like a regular person, which they are, then you'll get at the heart of who they are. And it's like we're all not much different at all.
Yeah, it's you know, you go in with like looking at them as they are you. You know, that could be you. You're looking at you until they do something that, you know, you realize, okay, they really don't know who they are yet, and then you gotta back off. But you know that eventually, as this is coming out, you within so many people on their different paths, everybody's on. That's, I think that's why it's called the narrow path, because each of us need different things, different filters out to come to the truth, you know, of who and what we are. So that's why we're on a narrow path, but it's leading to the same place. And I just actually had a dream, and I posted the video on the dream about, I think it was either 6 couples, 12 people, or 12 couples, 24 people getting married. And love is love, and unconditional love. And that's what I feel. The being that I met was unconditional love. So if I'm unconditionally loved, then I will reflect unconditional love out. Have you noticed that people kind of tell on themselves by their own words on if they're worshiping like the Old Testament wrathful God or the New Testament, you know, all love, all forgiveness, unconditional, you know. Have you noticed that in your walk? Have you had any problems with that with your channel, or, you know?
Oh yeah, I get the comments still. I get comments like, you know, I deleted one the other day because when they get to the point of being rude, I just delete them. It's not that I disagree with their view or that I didn't once even believe like they believe, but it's like when they reach a point of being rude, I just, you know, I want to create a safe space for people to, you know, post their opinions, even if it's contrary to what I believe. It's fine. Just, you know, have manners about what you post. And some people are just so indoctrinated that, you know, they sit there and they accuse me of, you know, being demon possessed and leading people astray.
Is. That's one thing we learn in church. Hey, I got a question from Willie.
Yeah.
He said, are all of Shane's other family members at the same level of awakeness? I wonder, question mark.
No, definitely not. You know, for my son, for the age he is really awake because he's only 11. He's my youngest. And, but, you know, you still have to have the experience along with it to really realize. But, you know, he's had things that show me that he's awake, and then I've got other family members that are awake to certain degrees, but I'm definitely the most awake and the one that's looked at like I'm a little bit out there and a little bit crazy at times.
The lunatics of today are the geniuses of tomorrow. Just don't forget that.
Definitely true. Definitely.
You're at the cutting edge, my friend. And for, starting your channel in 2017, and there we are 2018, and I'll tell you, when I'm in the stream there, I can just feel the love from the people that are gathered onto you. It's an absolutely wonderful place that you've got going there. It's just beautiful. So, okay, the old guy gone. The new guy is here. I asked you a little bit earlier if you had any, do you have dreams and visions, or you said you spoke in tongues, but that to me just tells me the same as what you said, is that the entire time there was a divine helper with you. You were being divinely protected for probably a time like this, where you're going to share that message everywhere and bring unity in diversity. And that is one of the things that my goal is. I say unity and diversity. Doesn't matter what culture, what background, what religion, none of this. This crosses every box, barrier, or border. But did you have anything else, like, besides the speaking in tongues that you had prior? Has anything else been stirred up, or is there any information that you are now deeply rooted in now that you were not in, that you maybe questioned?
Yeah, well, let me back up, because I had a couple of instances I can share from when I was a kid that I was shown something very important. That even one time, well, we were leaving church one day, and we loved to eat at White Castle's after church. I loved to go to White Castle's. It was the highlight of going to church for me, was getting to go to White Castle's afterwards. So, like, we're on the way to White Castle's, and I remember looking over at my mom and I said, "Don't go to White Castle's." And she's like, "Why?" I'm like, "I just had this feeling not to go." And immediately, the second it came out of my mouth, I'm like, "Why did I just say that? Now I'm not going to get the shake, and I'm not going to get the fries with the cheese." And I'm thinking about what I just ruined for myself. And I was like, "Oh, it was probably just in my head." And she's like, "No. Whenever you get those, you don't want to ignore them. You want to listen to them." So that was one instance where I felt like I received a download, a very important download, and I have no idea what would have happened if we'd gone. But it was definitely out of the norm. There was another time when we were going to stay at this hotel on vacation, and we went into the room, and I saw a big blood spot on the bed. Now, that wasn't really there. It was just in my mind, and I immediately started weeping. And me and my sister had ran up to the room before my parents, so I started trying to dry up my tears before my parents got in there. And of course, my sister told on me or whatever, and my parents went down, got a refund, and we went to a different motel or whatever. And I said, "It's silly, we're up here on, we're really high up on the floor. Like, no one could have, gone through the window or anything like that," is what I thought, but my mom took me over to the window and showed me that there was this little ladder up right outside our window onto this ledge, and that something could have happened. Now, I don't know what would have happened, but it was very emotional. I mean, I was weeping like someone in my family just died, and I saw a big blood stain on the bed. And so that was two different instances that I feel like I was shown something that was supernatural in nature. But besides that, going later in life, I've received information, but not nearly as dramatic as that. It's just more like ideas that pop into my head, or clarification on something I'm wondering about. And it seems like I figured it out in my head, but on another level, I know I'm not that smart to figure some of the stuff out that's sort of gotten figured out in my head. So I do feel like I've been downloaded with information, as they say. And it's just happened in a natural way.
So basically, you're a natural. It's the gifts are stirred up in you, but it's so natural to you. You're just operating in it.
Exactly. I can't really distinguish, and I have to really go into my heart space to know sometimes. And a lot of times, it's just like, did I come to this conclusion out of fear, or did I just come to it without the emotion attached to it? And that's sort of how I distinguish what is intuition from what is motivated by emotions or fear.
I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
I mean, I don't get many opportunities to, because you're always interviewing, so, so I'm going to ask you. And they're softball, so don't worry. But on 9/11, I get the impression when I think about 9/11 that the world was looking at that they wanted our energy to manifest what they wanted to broadcast out into the news. To me, that was kind of a signature mark stating that, we have these abilities and they need our energy in order to manifest them. What's your thoughts on that?
I think in retrospect, I can definitely see that being the case. But at the time, I was totally asleep as far as believing the government could even do anything like that. I mean, I was totally buying hook, line, and sinker the official narrative. I went out for my first time and voted for Bush, and I guess that was his second term, and because I really felt like we needed to help fight terrorism. I really felt like a lot of people do. If I was younger, I probably would have joined the military because I was just so gung ho about what was going on and being a part of it. And I'm so glad I was older. I was, too old to really try to start up a military career at that point, so I didn't. But yeah, I was totally, later on when I found out, all of these unanswered questions, like with watching like Loose Change, and there's been a few different documentaries that were really great with, at least showing us that the official narrative wasn't right. There was like many holes in the whole theory. But even recently, someone showed, I think Unirock did a video on it.
Shout out to Unirock.
Yeah, he did one showing how there was clips in like Back to the Future of like the two flaming trails in the 9. It looked like 9/11. And then he said, find out in 30 years. And then 30 years later, they have this movie about the cable going from tower to tower. And the guy that's dressed up like Marty McFly. And it's like, what the heck? It's like, this isn't coincidental. You can tell they purposely did this stuff. And that video came out like, I don't know, maybe a month ago.
Predictive programming.
Yeah, predictive programming. And it's like, did they really know about it that long ago? And I think even like when the guy was signing the papers, his watch had 9/11 on it, way back when they were building the towers. So it was like they knew about it the whole time. It's like crazy, So I don't know. It's like nothing is as it seems. It's like everything is a lie mixed with some truth in there just to make it believable. But I think it's just all about sucking you down into those lower vibrations and having you, glued to your television to see. I remember being glued to the TV during the DC Sniper and when's he gonna, attack again, and flipping from channel to channel. And I was so sucked into that whole thing. And I think that's what it's for.
Harvesting. Energy
exactly.
And I think as we're going through this, I see us all going through it hand in hand, and we're breaking our programming. I just did a video about the Mandela effect and, mimicking and these abilities that were so natural to us, and why, it seems so odd that we're seeing these anomalies and who's seeing them and why they could possibly be seeing them. That'll all drop in a couple of days. But I do see that now with your eyes open, when these events take place, I don't put my energy into it anymore because I understand what they're trying to do. I've heard several times that things are going on in my own city, and it's all over the news, and all this fires blazing through, and I'm like, what? There's no smoke. I don't smell nothing, and we're not on fire. So that paradigm is being broken, so to speak. So if I could give advice to people, it would be turn off the news for a while and clear your head. What advice would you give them?
Definitely to just be a passive observer, because I do like to keep an eye on things, but I don't get sucked into it. I don't get angry. I don't, of course, my heart goes out when we see there's, trying to word it to where you don't get a strike. Just when things happen that they show and you see a lot of people being terrorized, my heart definitely goes out to people that are falling for this stuff and it's affecting them. I mean, I'm totally empathic or empathetic when it comes to those sorts of things, but I don't.
There's a gift right there. That's a gift to have your heart cracked open and to be able to feel other people's sorrow and pain. You guys just give me time. I'll dig in there. I'll get him to tell a little more about himself. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so speaking of that, I remember being like 12 or 13 and watching an episode of like Emergency 911. I think it was called. It was like a one of those emergency shows, and I remember it was really my first ever response that I can remember with crying from like it happened a lot since I've had kids, but I was like 12 or 13, and this parent, like her son got kidnapped, and then she found him in the end, and um, just the relief in the mother's face, and I was sitting there bawling at that age, just feeling that emotion, and that was my first experience with really tapping into someone else's emotion and crying that cry of relief along with, and I think it was a reenactment too. I don't even think it was like real footage. So it was like, I don't know. It was just weird for me at that age,
Those
but
good old Lifetime movies.
yeah, it still stands out to me to this day. But yeah, that's that whole thing with the emotion. So I'm a passive observer. I try not to get sucked into anything. Like, yeah, I like to keep an eye on the Q thing and the political thing. I don't participate with. I don't vote or go out and rally or picket or anything like that. I feel like those are all sort of 3D ways of handling things. But I look with optimism that, oh, well, maybe this person might do something good, or I just try to be optimistic about what's happening on the whole 3D level.
So you understand that it's not, you don't have to physically go out. You know that you can look at something, observe it, and then make it whole within your thought process, and then manifest that, and then pour that love into it without having to go out and be aggressive or passive aggressive or anything like that. Yet another gift he just revealed, guys.
Well, it's really more like lately I've come to the point where I feel like I'm in the audience and I'm just observing this play. You've got the villains, you've got the heroes, and everybody's just playing their part. And at the end, everyone takes a bow, and nobody's angry with the villains at the end. They were just doing their part to make the hero look so much better. And white doesn't look bright white without the blackness of black. And you can't have a wonderful smell without the horrible smell to contrast it. So I understand the contrast is necessary, and so that's where I am right now. I'm to the point now where I appreciate both sides of the coin, because I know, the good side or the positive side won't be positive without the negative side. So it's necessary evil, if you will.
Right. Like there are people that is how they have to learn. They have to experience that darkness. Some people are able to take the wisdom from somebody else and glean from that so they don't have to face that darkness. But like there are those that actually have to face that darkness in order to comprehend it. Did you have, oh, I was going to ask you something first before we get into this. Are you a flat earther or a globe earther?
That's a good question. There's problems with the flat Earth model that I can't get beyond. That doesn't necessarily make me a glober. I guess where I'm at right now is simulation theory, to where, like for instance, one of the major problems I have with the flat Earth model is that no matter how high up off the ground you get, there's always a horizon, which I imagine that the higher you get off the ground, the further you would see, and you would get to a height where instead of there being a horizon, it would sort of just blend out as the distance got to where your visibility got knocked down by the atmosphere. So you would sort of have, instead of a horizon, you'd have it just sort of fade out into whiteness, like on a foggy day, the way it looks. So that's one of the major problems, but that fits in with simulation theory, because maybe we're only loading in so far. Like if I know when I worked on video games in 3D environments, or in animations with 3D environments, you sort of had the sun, and it's considered to be infinitely far away. So the light, the shadows are straight, they're all right in line perfectly. But it was a flat area. It was like a flat plane that you were working on. And as you progress forward, you didn't have to take into consideration that you were going around a globe or anything. It was just all flat. And if we're in some sort of simulation, the only time you really take into consideration the shape of the planet is if you're off of it. And unfortunately, we're just not off of it enough. I mean, even within the atmosphere, all the way to space, if you can think about it like this, the bumps on the basketball, the low part in between the bumps compare it with the high part on the top of the bump, would be about like the distance from the ground to space. So literally, our atmosphere is so thin that we're not getting very far away from the surface, even if we're going into space a little ways, like where the
Satellites.
satellites are supposedly. I want to say supposedly because I don't want to.
Yeah, because my cell phone doesn't work everywhere. If they were that good with their technology, why doesn't my cell phone work everywhere?
Exactly. So yeah, there's problems with the theory itself. But that doesn't mean, it's like it's built on a bunch of good information. NASA did lie; they did fake the moon landing. At least in the footage we saw, it's real clear that they faked stuff. We do have really abnormal flights from South America over to like Africa, and why are they going up here? But you think about it, if you're like carpooling and there's just not many people going over there, I can see them having to fly up here, grab more people, and fly down there. And there being plausible reasons for their flights being strange, if you will. So I feel like it's built on a lot of great information, but that information doesn't definitely point to a flat Earth. It could point to so many other things, and to really be objective about it, when we look at the sun does seem like it's infinitely far away. We can hop on an airplane and travel, like I can hop on the airplane here in Tulsa and I can look at the moon where it's at, hop on the plane, fly all the way to St. Louis, get off the plane, and the moon hasn't moved. I mean, it's pretty much where it would have been if I never left Tulsa, yet I just traveled, 500 miles. So how is the moon? My movement was negligible in relationship to how far away the moon was. These are things I can observe with my own eyes. So that doesn't fit with them being sort of close to the Earth and moving around like the flat Earth model is. So it could be flat, but the current flat Earth model just doesn't work, in my opinion.
And what about, lately I'm having day and night moons. Is the other area of the world not getting a moon? Or how many moons do we have? Come on.
Right. Yeah, I've often thought about the moons
too. Anomalies going on in our skies. It's just like, what?
Yeah, and if you can actually get an app. That's another thing that really puts it into perspective. It's called Sky Map, and you can track the stars at night. You can see which way they're moving. You can track the moon and everything. And what's really cool about it is it lines up with your camera, just like you're taking a picture. So you can you can point it at a star, say, oh, well, that's Jupiter. That's not a star. And you can actually move it and point it at the ground. You can say, oh, the sun is right under my feet right now. And, that planet's here and there, and you can watch the moon. It takes a month for the moon. That's why they came up with the name month is for moon, because it takes the moon a full month to go all the way around. Each day it moves back further and further and further and further until it's back where it started again.
Well, and then, okay, I want to ask you, have you seen the smiling moon yet? The Cheshire Cat smiling moon. I was brought up with an ecliptical moon, but the moon smiling at me has really thrown me off.
Not really. I have noticed the man on the moon face, and somebody had a rabbit picture that they kind of point out. Now I can't help but see the rabbit on the moon. So,
isn't Andy Warhol supposed to be on the moon now too?
Is he? I'm totally in what they call pareidolia, when you see pictures where you shouldn't see pictures in the clouds and things like that. So yeah, I see pictures all the time.
I did that when I was a child in the car. We would have fun. That looks like a bunny rabbit. That one looks like an angel. That one, and then all of a sudden we had lines like checkerboards, and now those are gone. So I'm loving that. I'll tell you what. I did an interview with a lady named Glowing, and she had told me in our chat forum about something that she was testing. And of course, we're told to test all things. So on Mother's Day, I tested it, and it happened. My mom said she had gray overcast clouds. And I said, well, we've got beautiful blue skies with puffy white clouds. I said, I'll bring them with me, because we went down to Mom's for Mother's Day. We get down there. There it is. Beautiful blue skies, puffy white clouds. I said, Mom, come out and look at your skies. And she's like, you know how moms are. She's like, oh, it always does that this time of day. Well, okay, whatever. But it worked. But I did an interview with her. I don't know how much you checked out the interviews before you made your decision to come on, but that's a pretty good interview to watch. She's got some pretty amazing stuff to share. That's why I love doing these interviews. People have so much, with their journey, that they're so unique to each person, but they lead to the same place, the same understanding, the equality, the oneness. I want to touch back on the flat earth, round earth, globe
Hmm.
earth. This is just my opinion, and you're probably going to say that's very unbiased and on the fence. I believe there's truth in both of them, but both of them have errors in them. I believe that since we are understanding the abilities within each and every one of us, that we're creating what it is that our heart is looking for. So I can be creating a place, you can be creating a place, a flat earther and a globe earther can be walking side by side, but we're quantumly entangled with each other. That's how we buffer each other, and affect one another with the decisions that we make. And we can be creating the world, but it's more like what the image is behind me. Each person is, quantumly entangled. And if everybody has their own independent, beautiful journey that they're walking out, they're on their own little world. I don't think God is uh, a small thing. I think God is so beyond our comprehension that, to think about it in the grand scheme of things, 7 billion strong here, each having a very unique life experience, different,
Hmm.
and just, it could be just subtle differences, but so beautiful. What do you think about that?
Oh, I totally agree. And that's sort of why I rested on the simulation theory, because in that theory, we're all loading in what we're loading in. And it's like, and it's a flat piece. So it's like we're all loading in a flat piece of Earth. So I can totally, that's why I've got a lot of flat Earth viewers, and I totally understand why they see it as flat. But just the theory as a whole, if we're just living in a 3D natural world or whatever, where we're all sharing the same thing, I just see problems in it that way. But that's why I don't view it that way. I view it like we're loading in, just like if we're both playing two Sims games, even if we're in the same game, we're only loading in our section that we are observing. And I think that's sort of what we're looking at here. We're loading in and that would answer the whole stars not lining up and the sun not seeming like it's as close as the flat Earth theory is. If it's just sort of loaded into our consciousness that it looks like it's there, because if you think about it, all of our instruments, our eyes, our senses, our eyes, ears, nose, and everything, is all creating the image or the sound inside of our brain. So. Nothing really happens out there anyway that we can prove because it's all happening in our head. And so we could totally be getting the information about where the sun is, and it's just in our head. So I mean, it's crazy to think of it that way, but when I've worked in enough 3D environments that I can totally see how things could just be programmed to be the way they are. And it's like a moot point to argue over the shape of the earth, because we'll only ever
It's
load
dividing.
in our section. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just another way to divide people. So I let people believe what they want, but I think simulation theory is really the best way to answer it. Like, we're sort of tapped into a consciousness that loads the information in. And like you said, it could be loading in flat or globe information for whatever you believe you're tapping into. I mean, it all sort of becomes a moot point if you view it that way.
Yeah, interesting. That's very interesting. I was trying to tell you that as you were talking, it was 144. I don't know if if those numbers get you, but the numbers get me all the time.
All
Numbers,
the
numbers,
time.
numbers. You do too? Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. It started with my mom. Her birthday was 11/11, and after she passed away when I was 19, I would see the clock would say 11/11 all the time, and I felt like it was her way of saying hi to me. And then when I sort of got out of religion and everything, I just thought, oh, I'm just being silly, and then it stopped happening. But as soon as my spiritual awakening started happening, I started seeing 11/11 along with all sorts of number synchronicities. It could be like 1234 and it catches my attention 1 2 3 4, or it could be 3 2 1 3 21 or 3 22. So I see so many that stand out at me, and I always use the example of if you're in a waiting room and you sort of look around at everyone and no one looks back at you, you don't notice anyone really. But if you look around and someone's looking back at you, it sort of takes you into this other realm of, oh, and it kind of pulls you out of whatever your thought is. And that's how it is with synchronicities. It's like you look at a clock and it's looking back at you, or the address or a phone number or whatever. And it's like sort of, it catches your attention.
You just touched on your spiritual awakening. When would you consider that actually happened to you?
Well, I felt like with the dark night of the soul that happened when I sort of kind of threw all that out the window, and that's when I was pushed back from the Mandela effect. I was pushed back into more of my right brain, the divine feminine, and the spiritual, the supernatural. So I would say that I was always real spiritual, but I probably had a year or two where I sort of just kind of thought it all as nonsense, and that was probably 2012 to 2015, or maybe 2013 to 2015, somewhere in there. I just got into school, went back to college for my bachelor's degree in media arts and animation, and really, I don't know, it just kind of became silly to me because I was just so busy all the time working, and it seemed like I was just caught up in the grind. You know what I mean? That's why the Mandela effect was a wake-up call for me, because it pulled me out of that shell I put myself into, and I'm so thankful for it.
2013. Well, see, mine was in 2012, and so 2013, and then having the aha, where you're stepping out of that journey, so to speak, of self-discovery, and then now walking in it. Because it's like a paradigm shift. I mean, everything you do in life now is different because you have a whole new understanding of who and what you are. So, wow, that's amazing. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, it's definitely been like I was always on my spiritual path. And then I had the dark night of the soul where I sort of let all that die. And then when I reemerged to more of a spiritual life, it's like I don't know, things have been happening so fast and so unbelievable for me. So I think that time away was important, because before I had that time away, I didn't understand people that didn't like people that would commit suicide, for instance. I just couldn't understand someone taking their own life. Now, I never contemplated suicide, but I reached a dark place where I was like, wow, I can really imagine if somebody felt like this taking their own life. And so it was important.
They didn't make it through the dark night of the soul. When did that happen for you? And can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I really think that as people are beginning to wake up, that is an integral part that we all go through. It's a refinement period. And since it is part of the process, we need to vocalize that, because it's not always sunshine and roses. You get there, but we need to talk about these parts of the journey too, so people understand what they're going through and don't think, oh my gosh, I'm just totally not getting it because I've got this going on. Because we need to make that more open to people that we went through this dark night of the soul. You want to get into that a little bit more, Shane?
Sure, definitely. I think it's really important because just like with anything, if you've never been there, you can't relate with people that are there. So for me, it was super important because I had gotten to where my life, my natural life, was all there was. If there was, I never got to the point of calling myself an atheist, but I did reach a point where I thought God was just energy that brought everything to life, and very impersonal, very just energetic, very scientific in my view of how everything worked. And that's where I was when I reached this point. And if I hadn't gotten so low, I got so low that it was almost a giveaway that something more was going on, because it was like someone was whispering in my ear that life is meaningless. I mean, I just couldn't get away from the whole feeling of not having any purpose and the feeling of things just being so utterly meaningless. I couldn't even enjoy happy times because
so your foundation had to be knocked completely down to be built upon that rock. That's why I say the Bible has the parables in there for you to understand it if you have the eyes to see it, and read it. What year was that happened to you?
That was at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, right before I started my YouTube channel, because that was sort of my way. When I realized that it almost seemed like a supernatural force was trying to get me down, because like I would just try to blow it off and just live life and enjoy life, but it was like something was always whispering in my ear, meaningless, and everything's so meaningless, and it was so bad. And I'm so glad that I read the Bible dozens of times, because I was taken back to Ecclesiastes, where Solomon writes the same exact thing. Everything's utterly meaningless, chasing after the wind, and those scriptures kept coming to my head at that time, and I was like, dude, is there an outside force trying to get me down? And that really, I'm like, all right, I'm stubborn. So as soon as I thought it could be an outside force, I sort of grabbed myself, pulled myself up. I said, at least I can try to unite people, and I can find some purpose in this God forbidden place, is how I felt, But I mean, you can even tell in my first videos, I was not a happy person. I'm like completely different than my first video. I look almost a year younger than I do a year older, because I'm so much more happy.
You're absolutely glowing. It's very noticeable. I've been sitting here admiring your aura the entire time of this interview. Hey guys, anybody wants to drop the link to the flame, now would be the time. We got about 10 more minutes with Mr. Shane from Unbiased and On the Fence. And his link is found in the description box. Also on my homepage under my Divine Family. Anybody that I interview, that's where their link will be found. And also he is going to be a permanent member under my featured channels, so he will stay there for as long as he's doing his channel. He will be on my featured list, and that you can scroll over and see everybody who's on my featured list.
I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate your channel. I just love the flow of the people that you have over there. It's just a beautiful place. And it wouldn't be a beautiful place if your foundation was not built on that rock. So I know that we have been set free of religion. And when I think about Christ, he rebuked the Sadducees and Pharisees. He rebuked that whole religious system.
Called them hypocrites.
Yeah. What do we think he came to teach? I mean, he would, and it also says in the Bible, if he sets you free, you're free indeed. And I'll tell you what, your wings are out, you are flying. So you're free. And the inner battle, that when I felt that going on, it was filters in my own mind, of things that were going on that needed to be like rooted out. And it is a very low feeling. It is the dark night of the soul. It's called that for a reason, or 3 days of darkness, or Christ himself went into hell for 3 days. I mean, these things are there. Why would we think we wouldn't go through our wilderness journey when Christ himself did after his baptism, which would mean to me that in his wilderness journey, he got refined, which we all go through that refinement period. And it doesn't matter what religion. I take the religion completely out. The man-made doctrines, or preaching behind the pulpit, or what they're thinking they're trying to tell us. No. No. It's not. You can find this very information in hieroglyphs, and you can find it in what you were talking about with the Enki and Enlil. You can find it in the Sumerian tablets. You can find it in, I talked to a friend, and he has studied at least 6 religions that I know of, and he found similarities in each and every one. Now you've got to learn what is the man-made stuff added into there, where it's a control matrix, and pull that stuff aside. Rightly divide the word, and you will see that the word it's life. There's life in it, but there's life in any culture, in any place that you look. The answers are there. We just need to, pull our head up and look, and then apply it. So if you're going through that dark night of the soul, it's a refinement period. It's getting rid of all those old ideas of yourself. And it can be depressing, and it can be hard on people, because you think that you are one thing, and then you got to get that removed so you can stand as the divine breath of life being that you truly are. to stand in your true, authentic identity. You have anything to add?
I would say that it's been 2,000 years since Jesus walked the earth, and we really are looking at the same exact thing he was looking at. We've got a religious structure that seeks to control people, and really, we've got to rise above that. And there's a lot of great Christians, great people in all the different religions, and when we realize, I mean, think about Jesus said that, anybody can love their neighbor and their brother and their sister. It's loving your enemies is the difficult thing. But, what I've seen so many religions that will go out and picket and hold up the most hateful signs at people that they don't agree with. And sure, they got their little catchphrases like, hate the sin, but love the sinner and things like that to make it all right. But it's not all right to go and make, put people down like that. And Jesus never did those things. And I've even seen artwork where, they'll have a picture of Jesus holding up the most hateful sign. It's like, he never did that. He always loved people, even the people that crucified and tortured him. He said, forgive them. They know not what they do. So I think Jesus is the perfect example. He's still my hero of how we should be, what we should achieve as humans. I think Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. But we've been told that that doesn't mean to try to emulate him or be like him or look at him as your role model, to just trust that he's done it all for you. But, that's not what he taught. And I think that's the important thing to take away from this is that, there's what Jesus taught, and then there's what people say Jesus taught. And you can look in the Bible and, work that out for yourself. But it's all there. I found my way out of the religious man-made structure by reading the Bible myself. I didn't use any other source because I was told no other source was as important as the Bible. So the Bible got me out of religion.
Yes, and I have to say, when this began for me, that was one of the first, because it happened at home, not in a church, not in a fort. And I can see that if it happened to you in a four-wall church, that you would be locked into that church because you're like, this is where it happened, this is where the miracles are. I get that completely. But this happened at home. And one of the things that I was praying for was to lead me to the proper church. Now, I, in my own wisdom, went and tested out some. And I'll tell you what, I was uncomfortable in each and every one of them. Because they're saying their love and their forgiveness, but then they're picking each other apart and judging each other. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable here. So, I withdrew from that and I read the Bible, and that was my first Mandela effect. Was I was reading the Bible in Luke, and I set it down, put my place marker in, and then brought it back out. And the next day, it went from Caesar's images on the denarius to Caesar's images on the penny. And like, no, Lincoln's on the penny. What happened here? I was like, this isn't right. And when I had that happen, it was like a zing all the way through my body. Did you have any kind of a physical, feeling when you're some of the Mandela effects, they zing us more than others. But the ones that really got you, did you have any kind of a personal zing happen to you, or what did it feel like for you?
It was mind-blowing. In fact, I did a video right at the time because I just started the recorder while I was traveling down the road, and you can see how freaked out I am. It looks like I'm on crack cocaine or something when I went back. I go back and watch it, and I even had people leave comments like that. It's like, get off the meth, dude. I'm like, I was going to get meth.
I'm gonna have you give me the link to that video if you don't mind, and for you guys, I will link it in the description box. Because I think that would be a very interesting thing to watch, is him being affected by the Mandela effect, one that personally messed with him, that he decided to turn the camera on and record himself while doing so.
Yeah, because I knew about it for about a year, and then I realized it was really happening. I looked at it, but at that moment when I realized it was really happening, I was on a drive and I flipped on the camera. Yeah, so it was from a little over a year ago, but I'll definitely grab that link and you can paste it in the description.
Yes, that would be awesome. I'm trying to see if there's any questions for you in the chat. See what Lily has to say. I did notice when my personal experience, it changed for my friend only after I told her it had changed for me. And it was in a song. Interesting. That does happen. I interviewed Suso, and he works in this bar, manages this bar, and he gives them like a Trivial Pursuit, and they get every single question wrong from their memory. And then he lets them know what the truth is, and they're like, what? Let's do some shout outs to some people in the group here. Who do we have? We got Candy Apple, we got Master Willie, we got Sharon, Tracy, Goddard Bob, Candy Apple, Jessica Thompson, the card. Looking. Oh, Sharon. Two Sharons. I'm going to have to do what you're doing. Just call out the one name and blanket over the both of them. And did I miss anybody? Oh, Glowing. That's all I can see. Although my tablet's so tiny, it's hard to, yeah. So if I missed you, say hi real quick. And because we're about to finish up here, and I will get that link from him and put it in the show more notes for you guys, because I think it's amazing when people have those moments that they turn the camera on and video themselves, possibly losing their marbles, but really not. As you can see, he's very level-headed, and and you do, when you go through the dark night of the soul, please realize it's not uncharted territory. Many of us have been through that very same thing. Seek out for the help that you need to lift you up so that you don't fall too far down. And Shane gave some good advice, to try and put yourselves in the other person's position, and you start to lose the biases and, stay unbiased and on the fence. Do you have any last words?
Yeah, I would like to add this because I think it's really important. When you're in the dark night of the soul, you feel like it's never going to end. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. You can't even imagine you can ever switch your perspective to where it's not, you're just in a living hell. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to know that if you are at that point where you feel down and out like that, and you can't imagine you could ever view things differently, that's not the case. This is all part of the process, and you will come out the other side. And so not to give up. Stay encouraged.
A couple more shout outs real quick. We've got Linda Chapman and I don't hope I'm not saying this wrong. Tanya? Or is it just Tanya? It's with an A, so Tanya. Yeah. You guys, please like, share, and subscribe. If you're interested in coming on and doing an interview, contact me. My email address is in my About section. You should be able to easily find it. I love having these interviews. I love it when people share what they know so I can listen and grow. I'm very grateful to have Shane to present his journey to you guys today. He has a channel that is just booming. So much love and gratitude in the people that watch. If you float in that stream, you're just going to be engulfed with love and peace. So make sure if you're not subscribed to him that you definitely do that. So yeah, that's it for it. And moderators, please drop the link for the Flame chat room. And Willie, if it's okay with Shane, you can drop the Unbiased on the Fence chat link. Is that okay with you, Shane?
Definitely. Yeah, Willie's my man, so I appreciate it. Thanks, Willie. Shout out, man, for all you did.
Yes, Willie's amazing. Willie helped actually set this up, so we have him to thank for Shane coming on and telling his testimony, his journey, and his story. It was absolutely beautiful. You guys have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.